Welcome back to The Cinnamon Effect. Arathi Shekhat joins me today. She is a marriage and family therapist who is married to a psychiatrist, and they have 3 children. Arathi has worked in women's health clinics, a domestic violence shelter, eating disorders programs, and a residential program for teens and adolescents. Arathi, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yay. So Arathi actually came and did a speech at my son's school. And that's how I met her originally. And I volunteered for like a little interactive segment of her talk. And after that, I was like, oh my gosh, this would be so good on the podcast. You know, she would be great. So I am so glad that you're here because I have like a lot of topics brewing in my head about what, what I want to know. But I was reading about you, of course, and you talked about this as well, that your husband is a psychiatrist. So what does it look like when a marriage and family therapist and a psychiatrist get married? Like, is your house completely in order and
no,
you just run like a, you know, a well-oiled machine or what?
Everything goes out the door the minute we open our front door and come in the house, and all our baggage from all of our childhoods and being together comes right up. So we have to do the same work that we ask other people to do because we know what the plan should be.
Yeah.
We know how we're supposed to parent and interact with each other. But why don't we sometimes?
Right.
So
that's a big question. Do you think almost maybe sometimes it's harder because you do know so much? Obviously, you know so much and he knows so much.
Right.
And then do you butt heads at all with like how you think things should go?
Sometimes, in the sense that his orientation is more medical, right? Mm-hmm. And then mine is more analytical, therapeutic. So sometimes, and family therapists by history used to be sort of anti-meds. That is not me, but the history of family therapy is that. So in my training days, some of that leaked through. Mm-hmm. So I have to be aware of that bias.
Gotcha.
When we're talking about a case or talking about medication. And really with him, he's super conservative anyway with medications. Mm-hmm. So it's not really an issue. I mean, the great thing about him is that he wouldn't do anything for any child that he wouldn't do for our child were they in the same situation. So I feel really confident that whatever he's recommending is the right thing. Mm-hmm. But as far as how it affects us personally, the one good thing is I think that we argue in a very civilized manner.
Right.
For the most part. And maybe we would have done that anyway. But we tend to argue in a very, well, our kids know if we're debating or arguing something. So maybe it's not as civilized as I think it is in my head because they know when we're not agreeing on something. But yeah, we don't go below the belt.
Yeah, that's a good note to take. How old are your kids?
13, 11, and 9.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do they ever go, you know, like to one parent and say, oh, well, dad said, you know, this is the way it goes. Or mom says, I mean, don't kids always do that?
Yeah.
They're like,
oh yeah, of course.
Whose opinion did they favor more?
Well, mine is the only one that matters at the end of the day. So
that's what I say too. I know my son, I think he knows he's going to get a more stern answer from dad. So he comes to mom and like tries to play that. You know.
Yeah. I have to say, like, sometimes me and Raj go back and forth about who has got the more stern of the answer. So it's a crapshoot for them who they're asking. So they really should just ask me.
Right.
No, I'm kidding. You know, he does great. I am the primary caregiver still.
Okay.
So the only time we butt heads is if he said yes to something that I know is not in our daily routine. Mm-hmm. And then I'll remind the kid, you asked Daddy.
Yeah.
And you know that that's not how we do. You put him in a position. So just so you know, it's still no.
Right. Still no. And your practice is located here in Jupiter.
Yes.
Do you see more, do you see more couples, or do you see more children, or do you see a combination of both? Do you see families all together? Like, how does that work?
So I see a combination, but the way my practice has evolved is from, I came in wanting to really work with couples, really.
Okay.
And so I had a lot of couples in the beginning, and I still do, but because Raj is a child psychiatrist, I tend to get a lot of referrals for kids and teens, teens specifically, and I love it. Oh my God.
The teens.
I did not think that I would love it as much as I do.
Wow.
But yeah, it's almost like a comfort zone for me to work with
because you have a
kids.
13-year-old, so you're entering the teen zone right now.
Entering the teen zone, and I'm very much in touch with my inner 15-year-old. So she likes to come out to play when I see teens, and it works out great.
Oh, I love that. Like a little inner child work for you too.
Yeah. She helps keep me in the know about what's going on.
Yeah. Because my son's 7. And so I feel like some of my questions will be driven towards, younger children, but what are some things, like if you have a teenager right now, and obviously there's hormones flowing and people are, they are probably bucking authority a little bit. Yes. What are some tips in dealing with teenagers? I mean,
don't lose your mind.
Don't lose your mind.
Don't lose your mind. I would use other words.
Yeah.
Try not to, because when they talk in a certain way, speak in a certain way, there's a little rage monster that you might feel inside of yourself when you feel like you've been disrespected, or that they're talking crazy to you. Before you let that monster out, take a pause. And really decide which direction you're going to go in before you just jump in on that impulse. Because we're asking them to have a lot of impulse control. We need to show that ourselves.
I like that. Model the behavior that we want to see, right?
Yes.
From them.
Yes.
Oh gosh, I'm already nervous about the teen years.
Just aim for 80%. Okay, parenting. You'll probably be okay. Maybe in 50. I don't know. Just aim to be as okay as you can be.
What do you think teenagers really want? Because, they say with toddlers and young kids, all they really want is love and attention, right? Yes. Yes, they have other needs, but they really just want love and attention.
Yes, 100%.
What do teens want? Are teens wanting the attention? What do you think is there?
They want love and attention and freedom.
Freedom.
So they're at that stage where they're really separating from mom and dad. And that is a biological process. It happens in the brain that now is time to separate from mom and dad. So their behaviors are driven to push mom and dad away. You'll see a lot of teens isolating their rooms or wherever, they're not out with the family quite as much. And just to not take it personally. It doesn't mean that they don't want to be with the family anymore. It doesn't mean that they don't love mom and dad and siblings the same way. But sometimes they don't feel like sitting at family dinner, and sometimes you're going to validate that and say, okay, you've got the past, and sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're going to be your butt sitting here at family dinner.
So there's not really a magic mix of, do you force them to do the thing that they don't want to do? Or do you allow them to have that freedom and to kind of make the choice of whether they want to sit at family dinner or not?
It's really a push-pull, and it's a balance in the sense that, a 13-year-old's autonomy is going to be different than a 17-year-old's autonomy. So keep in mind the long game that you're raising an adult. So just like you wouldn't expect a 13-year-old to have all the skills necessary to make big decisions, the same as a 17-year-old's making decisions about college, where to go, they're driving, you slowly ease into more and more freedoms And even when you don't agree with their logic, because sometimes their logic is so dumb, hear it and validate, because really the need is for them to not be told what to do. And sometimes they're going to be told what to do, but it doesn't feel good. So just validate that. I know it doesn't feel good to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And we're going to sit together tonight because it's important.
Yeah. Because it's important to me. Yeah. Right. I sometimes use that with my son now. He, we try to sit as a family, but there's sometimes where he's in the middle of watching something that is riveting to him. And he's like, I really want to sit over here, which is like a stone's throw away, but sometimes, I'll let him sit over there, and then I'm like, oh, Dad and I can actually have a conversation. Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, you know what, this is really important to me that you sit with me tonight. And 9 times out of 10, he's like, okay, Mom.
Yeah.
They really do want to please you, right? Yes. I mean, they're not trying to be little jerks.
No, they're not. And actually, their connection with you is where the cooperation is going to come. The more connected your child is, and this is, talking about not teens, the more cooperation is going to naturally occur. Now, I know there are some strong-willed children that have more difficult temperaments. So I would say it's 90% true. And with those other kids, sometimes you have to have a little bit more patience, understanding, that kind of thing.
For sure.
Every child is different.
Yeah, every child is different. One of the hot topics, like in my house right now, is screen time.
Oh, Lord.
And you probably, I can only imagine you get a lot of questioning and stuff about that.
Yes. In every house, and in our house included, it's an issue.
It's an issue. Yeah.
So you have to keep in mind what the screen, what the phone in particular, or YouTube videos, what it does in the brain. It gives a little dopamine kick, right? And it's very instantaneous, and it's hard to pull away from it. So when you interrupt someone, and this might even happen with your spouse, in the middle of whatever they're doing on the phone, you might get a little snap. And when you get the snap, that little rage monster is going to come up.
Yeah.
Right.
I get really rageful when I'm like, if someone is like paying more attention to the phone than me, yes, the rage monster comes out.
Yeah.
In primary example is my husband.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Because we want connection too with our spouses. And when someone, spouse, child, anybody is in their device, you are as disconnected from them as you can possibly be. So it's maddening sometimes, and it's hurtful sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but we have to remember too that we also do this. We also are in our phones sometimes, and child or husband will get our attention, and we're maybe shorter than we would like to be. So again, that's where that modeling comes in, of how to disengage from the device without being so irritable about it.
Yeah.
And also, trying to respect whatever they're doing. If they say, Mom, I need just one more minute, and you look and see, and actually their little game or whatever is going to be over in a minute, it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Allow them to
give them the minute.
Yeah.
Now, if you see that the minute has passed and now they've started a new game, not that I know from personal experience.
Right.
Wink, wink.
They're always starting a new game.
Yes.
Like that's always, they are always starting a new game.
Yes. It's okay to be like, and now it's time to be done.
Yeah. So do you think, I think personally, I try my hardest, but it's hard, especially with, everyone's like working from their phones. So it's not, sometimes I'm like, well, I'm not like scrolling social media. Yeah. I am like doing stuff, I am doing stuff on my phone. So it's really hard to say, like during the day, my son may be like, oh, mommy's been on her phone, but like mommy's working on her phone. Yeah. So what, work versus play versus trying to have some nighttime rules around it. Well, we're going to put our phones away at 7 p.m. or whatever, and we're not going to check them again, until tomorrow or whatnot. And it kind of sounds silly, but I just think we're in this era of like, they send a text and they immediately want a response.
Yes.
Right? People, we're so used to now being just so accessible to each other that it is hard. And I wonder, what we're teaching our kids by, doing all of that as well. Like it's kind of boundaryless,
we'll know in about 10, 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really what the effects have been. But, what you're describing is something that happens in every single home with, hey, mom, you're on your phone too, or dad, you're on your phone too. And we have a rationale for why what we're doing on the phone is more important or is important, right? Mm-hmm. And this is what I tell my husband when he tells me that he's reading an article. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Nobody cares about the article or nobody cares what you're doing.
Nobody cares what you're doing.
Yeah.
Nobody cares what you're doing. So if, just know that.
Yeah.
Like you may still, make the choice to work on your phone. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I do as well. Mm-hmm. But just know that they don't care about that.
Yeah.
That doesn't have any grand meaning to them. Like, oh, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like maybe in their rational part of their mind, and in our minds too, the rational part will say, okay, that's okay. But that emotional part is like having its emotional response.
Yeah. So. Do you have any specific recommendations? If a parent's coming to you and their child is 5, let's say, are you saying, well, it's recommended that they only get this many minutes on a device? Kind of take me through that a little bit. Is it by age? I just think none of us were taught or given, not that we have to be taught, but there were no instructions. And these devices are in our lives, and there were literally no instructions attached to it as far as this is unsafe levels or, and I get it. In a perfect world, we would not have as many screens and devices as we do, but we are in this world and this is what we have. So how do we handle this as parents? And I know most parents that I talk to, they're really concerned about it. I am personally very concerned about the screen time. It bothers me. We try and limit it. It's a constant daily effort though. 100%. It really is.
Even in my house, it's the number one thing that brings conflict. Mm-hmm. So, just know that, me and Dr. Shekhat are figuring it out with everybody else, but official recommendations for young children, I believe it's 2 hours is the max, and it should be not fast-paced material. So no commercials, no TikToks. Mm-hmm. So something that has a story with a start, beginning, and end is the most preferable way for young children to consume media. Think Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Or Mr. Rogers.
Something learning. So that's 2 hours per day, and that's all screens included, whether they're looking at a device or a TV or
Mm-hmm. So where it gets hairy is that now they use, the devices at school, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know how those recommendations are going to evolve and change, or if they're going to, or where the future is with that. We're all trying to manage it ourselves at home. I would strongly encourage parents to utilize the screen time limits that exist on the phone and on the iPad, so that when the device shuts off, it's a non-argument. It's a non-conversation. The device has shut off, the time has passed or whatever, it just shuts the app off. And I will also say that our big kids know how to get around those limits.
Oh.
So if you just YouTube how to get around parental limits, there's about 800 billion videos teaching kids how to do it.
Yeah, of course.
So, but there's other apps and other services that are coming out and that are out to help filter material. Because really, that's a big concern too, is like, what are they looking at?
Yeah.
You know, and we worry less when they're little, in the sense that we think that they don't even know to Google, you know, that thing that's going to lead to a site that's not okay.
Right.
But you have to keep your eye on that. You have to keep your eye on that. When your kids are little, they shouldn't have access to adult YouTube. Mm-hmm. Right. So you cannot be lackadaisical about how they are consuming their screen time.
Yeah. So. Really stay on top of it. I try to always have, it's hard because I think as parents, parents sometimes use it as a tool to like get things done, or, you sit here and do this. So I can do this or whatnot. Yeah. But I do think, always having it and what are you watching? Okay. What is that? Being engaged in their child and what they're doing, is important. Yeah. It's such it is hard.
And I'm not going to say that we don't do it either. Like if I want to go, and when the kids were littler and I would hesitate to like walk out of the house without taking somebody with me. If I wanted to walk to the mail, which is 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I know that if that TV is on, they will not move from that spot. And to me, in that moment, that's preferable to whatever they could get into. Mm-hmm. And I would like 5 minutes to walk to the mail.
Yeah.
By myself.
Yeah. And we need that. And we need that for our own mental health too, right? Like
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that less now that my kids are big, that I need to have space away from them because the physical care of them is not so exhausting.
Yeah.
And for me, little kids were a lot for me. Mm-hmm. I find the big kids to be a joy. Yeah. Not saying my little kids weren't a joy, but they were also a pain.
Yeah. They are. I mean, it's a lot of care. It's a lot of, especially with 3.
Yeah. It's a lot of, wiping bottoms and 3 meals a day times 3 plus snacks. Like it's a lot of mommy. And when they get bigger, some of that goes away and you're interacting with them in a different way, less about, can you make me a snack, and more about, I talked to my friend at school and this is what happened, and like just different conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really enjoy that.
You enjoy that. Yeah. Yeah. See, that's funny. I am a juxtaposition. Like I love baby. But as we're getting, older, my son's 7.5, and he's, just the conversations we're having now and his thoughts and everything, it just blows my mind. This little, I call him my little man, but like this little man that's like emerging is really sweet too, all the phases. So another question I want to talk about is, I think like self-confidence is one of the most important things. And maybe, you can speak about that, but I'm just wondering how I understand, complimenting a child and, giving them praise and things like this, but what are some great ways to like build confidence in kids? Is it something that we wouldn't necessarily think that is building confidence, or how would you, they say like giving chores to young children, like that builds confidence for them in a way, right? Yes. Because they are having the confidence that they can complete that task, right? How do you suggest building confidence in kids? Well, and teens, like, I mean, it could be at any age, right?
Yeah. It's an evolving process from day one, right? Until even we're at whatever ages we're at now, and we're still evolving in those areas, right? So it's not something that we can necessarily pour into a child. And I wish it was. I wish so much that it was. But, with young children, giving them chores, letting them be useful is helpful. It helps them have a sense of autonomy and mastery. And with your bigger kids, the level of responsibility of those chores and those tasks should increase in accordance with their age and maturity. Like, for instance, our mailbox is like I said, 5-minute walk away. Mm-hmm. So for the longest, like I let my older kid do it at like 10 or 11. I let him walk by himself to the mailbox and come back. And that was like a big thing. Mm-hmm. And I struggled a lot with my middle kid because at 10 and 11, sometimes he's still not looking across the street.
Right.
So, and it's really tough because he's just that kid that's a little bit more absent-minded. He's a little bit more not so aware of his surroundings. So to make a blanket statement of when you're 10, you can do is not really accurate to what his actual abilities and capacity is. So see your child. What are they capable of? Stretch it 1% above what you think it is and go from there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. I feel like I have an only child, so I did a lot of things for him, like if he needs water, like I'm like, I mean, it just seems easier. Like I don't have multiple children. So like catering to one seems easier. And I've talked to other moms that have only children too. And it's kind of the same thing. But so what if you feel like you kind of have missed the boat thus far?
Okay. Don't
like
worry about
promoting chores
one bit, because what you're providing is love and care and the internalized experience of being safe and taken care of.
Okay.
So even if you don't do chores at all, know that they have an internalized experience of feeling safe and loved. And when they go out into the world, whether they have the physical skills of being able to cook, it doesn't matter because they have the knowledge of what it feels like to be well nourished. So when they make those attempts themselves to feed themselves, they're going to know that McDonald's doesn't feel good every meal. And they're going to adjust themselves to figure out what it is to emulate that experience that they know feels good.
Okay.
So worry less about teaching them the XYZs of life.
Okay.
And spend more time on creating love and care and attention and fun.
Okay. So it's okay to do that. Like chores were always important in my house. And I do think it taught me a lot about, like, I think I keep like a very clean house, but now, in this day and age, we kind of have more people coming in to, like house cleaners and things like that. Yeah. Where when I was growing up, nobody had a house cleaner. Yeah, that was not a thing. Like, and if you did, you were living in a mansion, like it was totally different. So I obviously like want to give him, these little tasks. So we're trying to find a balance of, just requiring him, I guess, to do certain things around the house.
Yeah.
Even though someone else can come in and do it, but like, these are the things that you need to do.
Yeah. So pick and choose what feels good to you and your household and routine. Maybe it's unloading the dishwasher. Maybe it's, wiping down the counter. Maybe it's, taking a Clorox wipe and wiping off all the door handles. Like, whatever it is, like a small daily task, because you have your cleaners that are going to come in and do some of the big stuff. You still have to pre-clean. That's like a big day in my house.
Yeah. Oh, the pre-clean is probably more hours than the actual clean, right?
Yes, 100%. But again, like what you're showing him and modeling him for him is to live in a tidy and clean environment. And while you may not see him embodying that in his teen years or early adult years, you might see that as he matures into a fully functioning adult, and you might be surprised that his home is very tidy.
Yeah. He was actually soaking up some of that knowledge that we gave.
Yes. As his responsibilities increase in life, his need for a tidy environment like he had as a child is also going to increase. And I've observed that even in just myself. Like I was a messy teen, a messy young adult, But then when I, had a roommate and like or I had a job, like as my responsibilities increased, so did my skill in other areas.
Yeah.
And even now, like if I think about my caretaking skills now at 44 years old are even better than they were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So we keep increasing, right? We keep up leveling.
Yeah, we keep up leveling for sure. I as I'm like asking you these questions, I'm thinking, just how much I think that most of the parents who I know and I'm surrounded by really want to do for their kids. Like I think we're all like such doers. Like, what can I do? What can I do to build their confidence? What can I do to, and some of this is just part of the journey for them and they're going to have to figure it out. Right.
Yeah. And that's the hard part, because when they're struggling with something, when they come to you with so-and-so was mean to me at school, or I didn't have anyone to sit with at lunch, we want to get in there and call the teacher and be like, how can we help, help him foster relationships at school and yada, yada, yada. And sometimes that's appropriate and sometimes it's not. Sometimes what our child is wanting is someone to just sit with us in those emotions, just to be able to hold it and not fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what we want from our spouses a lot of the time?
Yeah. We just want them to hear us.
Just hear, empathize, and don't give me your solutions, because those are really annoying to me right now. And it's the same for kids. Because what it does is, well, Mommy, you don't understand. Because when you're like, oh, well, why don't you go talk to so-and-so? They're sitting by themselves. And you give the solution, and it's a great solution. And the response is, you just don't get it.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like, you kind of have to massage the situation and know when it's time to sit and know when it's time to help problem solve. And sometimes we're going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
That's okay.
At what age do you think, like, I was kind of struggling with this. My son didn't want to do his homework. And I was like, you have to do the homework. And then he was like, no, I don't want to do it. And I was like, okay, let's start this again. Yeah. You have to do it. And it was just like, I was getting, the rage monster was coming out. I was getting like more and more angry at this scenario, just thinking like, oh my gosh, he's a little bit of a stubborn guy. Yeah. And he was just like not budging on it. So in the end, I bribed him with a little like, well, if you do the homework, then you can do this, or you can have more iPad time, or you can have a dessert or whatever it is. At what point, like, is bribing bad? That's a question. At what point do I let him, okay, you don't want to do the homework? Don't do it. You take it into the teacher. You explain to her why you're not going to, why you said you weren't going to do the homework. Like, is that an age appropriate thing? Like okay. So at 7, is that too young to be like, okay, you're going to go in and talk to her and tell her why you didn't do it? Do you think it's age appropriate or not?
I think it's extremely age appropriate because the stakes are so much lower at 7 than they are at 15.
Yeah.
When we don't do our homework at 15, now we've got a GPA that now we've got to put on our college applications and blah, 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 blah. But at 7, we can learn those lessons without the stakes being so high. And you might see that he doesn't care. And like he turns doesn't turn his homework in and doesn't care. And that's okay. He's 7. Homework's not even proven to be that beneficial for young kids.
Okay.
And I remember having this conversation with my kid's 2nd grade teacher. Like, we don't really believe in homework in our house for young kids. And she just looked at me and said, okay, well, this is what's due.
Yeah. She was like, I don't really care.
Yes, exactly.
I don't really care what you're telling me.
Yes. Yeah. So it's again, a push-pull and a balance of what is really important to you to enforce in your home. And when do you teach your kid to like, okay, sometimes we got to do stuff we don't want to do.
Yes.
And that is sort of a check the box sort of situation. And we just do it.
Yeah.
it's a both and.
It's a both. So how do you motivate, like, some kids are very motivated kids. Some kids are very motivated to go to practice, or they're motivated to do the homework or whatnot. And some just seem like they're not, How do you motivate, maybe motivate without bribing, or is bribing okay to like help and I say bribing and I'm just talking about, almost like a reward, not necessarily bribing, but like more like a reward scenario.
Well, I think it's a reasonable expectation that your work is done before you get on the iPad. So if you choose not to do your homework and you don't have iPad time for the whole night, if that's cool with you, then so be it. It's a win-win, because now you've solved that solution, the whole debate about whether it's too much screen time. Well, no.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to be having it.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, well, I get that win, and he has to go turn in nothing for his homework assignment. Okay, that's his deal. But he had a night full of pretend play or whatever play that doesn't involve the screen. So,
which is such a like mom win. It's always like, I'm always like, yeah, he made the decision to like play over there, but like, I'm like crushing life right now because my kid is not on a screen, and we're like, he's making like paper airplanes or something.
Yes. And don't you feel great about that versus if he did the worksheet, the 5-minute worksheet, and then he's on the iPad for 2 hours. Like,
yeah. So maybe like let it play out a little bit. Let life play out instead of trying to just plan and cram and do,
Yeah. And the truth is, like, all these things that we're doing now, you might not see the immediate result of your parenting. And that's hard. Like, you might feel like, oh, my kid's not behaving or my kid's not doing. And then all of a sudden you will start to see little hints of what you've been teaching them, and they've internalized some of the things. I see this I see it with all three. And it is so rewarding as a parent to know that my suffering was not in vain.
Right. Right. You're like, I tried so hard to get you to do this, and now you're just doing it on your own.
Yes.
Like, that's pretty awesome.
Or I had to withhold myself from making you do. And I really wanted to make you do, and I didn't. And now you're better off for it.
Yeah.
But I had to withhold my own need to check the boxes for you.
Yes.
To make it happen.
Yeah. I know it's such a learning, gosh, they don't give you, instructions on how to do all this stuff,
No, they don't. And the best thing about having kids, or one of the best things, is that they'll show you all your BS, all your issues that you didn't even know that you were struggling with will now be revealed.
Yes.
And when you start to take care of those things for yourself, it is healing for you and for them. So it's this beautiful mutual process of healing and growing that we get to have as parents.
Yeah, it is beautiful. I totally agree with you. Like they are like such amazing little teachers. What they don't realize it, they don't realize that they're teaching us and healing us, but
no, they don't know. They're just these little beings. Yeah. Which is, great for them. We don't want them to know that they're teaching us. Yeah. in that sense, like, we don't want them to feel responsible for our emotions. Yeah. Right. But, it just happens naturally.
What was, if you're willing to, talk about it, what was one of the biggest things for you that you realized, like, you were healed through your children? Is there something you can think of?
Okay. So one of the things I struggled with, as an adult was feeling like I did not work as hard as I could have in school, meaning that I could easily get A's and B's without much effort. And I didn't have great study skills or study habits when I got into college. And I felt like in some ways that held me back from having certain options for different professions or whatever. Like, and so with my oldest one, like not putting my foot up his behind to do work and do it the way I want him to do it. Like, here's your planner. This is what you need to do. I am teaching you the skills that I did not have. And aren't you lucky that you have me to teach you these things? And he had about zero interest in learning them. And for me to not get really angry and upset about that was hard. Yeah. And also acknowledging that what I am forcing onto him is something I detest about myself.
Right. Right.
So I need to address that within myself. Like, what is going on there that I have this part that I am so rude to and mean to and have so much, low opinion of. Yeah. Because actually, I'm doing great. Yeah. Like, why does it matter now when I'm in this profession that I love that I didn't have certain options at that time?
Right. You're really where you should be, right?
100%. 100%. So that process helped me feel like, okay, I'm here. Yeah. Let me thank that part that had other priorities that time in my life.
Yeah. I had a teacher, one of my son's teachers, who told me that she had two daughters, and one was the top of the class and one wasn't necessarily the top of the class, both very smart children. But she wished that the one that was at the top of the class would have had more balance with other things, right? And that really stuck with me because I think in our heads, we think, well, the top of the class is the only way to be, right? Yeah. Especially if, like, high achiever. You're a high achiever. You want your child to be a high achiever. And that is not what we need to focus on. It's every, journey is different for every kid, and it's not always the top of the class. But I think we think, like, I can relate to that too. You're like, well, I learned this big lesson and I want to tell you about this lesson, and I want you to learn from my mistakes, right? Yeah. And do this better in a better way. Yeah. Oh, it's hard.
It's so tough.
Yeah.
It really is. But, the more we show compassion to ourselves, the more we have compassion available to them. So it really is, when we're really particular about a certain thing with our kids, when we're really getting activated by a certain thing, like, we have to look like, what's going on for me, that this is so important.
Yeah. So, use it as a tool for self-reflection, right? Yeah,
because you might come to the conclusion that whatever that thing is about you and not about them.
Yeah.
And then aren't you just putting your BS on them?
Yeah. Isn't that really the way it is? Don't they say, like, other people are a mirror to what is bothering you? So that's like the same in our relationships too. Like, we've probably chosen somebody that that does something that is a reflection of something that really bothers us.
Yes,
right?
100%, 100%. Like, and I really was resistant towards that because there's this, in psychology, the prevailing thing is that you attach to your romantic partner in the same way that you attach to your primary caregiver. And I was like, nope, that's not true for me.
Yeah. Does anyone really want to believe that?
But 20 years in, maybe there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
And seeing his attachment style and my attachment style and being a mother helps me reflect on really what happened for me.
Yeah.
From a different perspective.
Yeah. I remember thinking, like, I heard this term trauma, and I was like, oh, I don't know if that even pertains to me, right? Years ago. Now, having a child, being in like such a committed relationship, like all these things, you're like, oh yeah. And now all the trauma is like served on a platter to me. So I can like deal with it on a daily basis, you know, and I think really, you know, having a child does that, because you confront all the things that you feel like maybe just weren't the best, like in your life. Right. And you're like, I'm not going to let that happen, or I'm not going to do that to this precious little baby. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's a wild ride.
Yeah. But you know, let's celebrate that too, because at least we're reflecting on what it was for us that we want to improve upon. And that intention is there.
Yeah.
So it comes from a loving place. And the more we can, accept that, and it's a loving place, and maybe it's not as helpful as I thought it was going to be to do it this way. Maybe I'm not going to be able to pour in those perfect study habits like I really wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not.
Yeah.
They're going to unfold into the human beings they're going to unfold into. And the more work I do on myself, the more I model self-regulation and the ability to sit with whatever it is that they bring and that I have, the better off they will be.
Yeah. Yeah. Just give the best parts of yourself. Just put them out there, not with any intention to change somebody or to make them that way. But if you can just put the best parts out, then maybe they soak up.
Yeah. Well, the best parts and the crap parts, because it's all going to be there.
Yeah, true. That's the perfectionist part of my brain talking.
Yeah, well, whether you want it to be or not, it's there, right? If we ask our mom and dads, like, you know, how they think they raised us and what their perception of it was, it might be different than how the experience was for us as kids.
Yeah, very true.
So know that you're not hiding your BS when like you think that you are. And that none of us, we're children are so adept at picking up on our energy. And even though their little innocent brains and minds can't put words to it, they feel it. And later when they do have the words, I've been shocked sometimes.
Yeah.
Like at things they've reflected on and be like,
wow.
You knew that? Oh yeah, mommy.
Oh gosh. Yeah, they're a part of us. Like there's so much entangled energy there. Oh gosh, I know. I believe it. Lead with love, and that's
or just lead with yourself.
Yeah, be yourself.
Yeah. As much of yourself as you can bring to the table. You know, I have this belief that the self is love, is acceptance, is all those things. Self doesn't really have a judgment towards any of the parts of us that are less than desirable by society or by ourselves. So if you can bring that inner authenticity out, let it be there, then you give the people around you permission to also be themselves.
I love that. That's a perfect way to kind of wrap up. I did want to ask you a couple of just questions about your wellness routine. Do you have any wellness routines that you do? A morning routine? Are there any rituals, practices that you rely on?
I go to the gym 6 a.m. That is my, I've been doing it for 10, 15 years now. I have to do that. That is me taking care of my body first thing. And I won't say it's the end all be all that I'm just like, the happiest ever because I went to the gym, but it is part of my routine.
Yeah.
And my nighttime routine is also, the same, has been for 30 years. Brush my teeth, wash my face, put on my lotion, and that ritual is what sets me in a mind to go to bed.
Yeah.
Right?
Wind down. What time do you go to bed?
Guilty look.
I know. Either really early or too late.
My aim is to have the house wrapped up, kids in bed, and me in bed by 9. So that I can then watch a show.
Yes.
But sometimes it's more like 10 and we're watching that show until 11. So
yeah, hey, we do the best we can.
Yeah. Right? And I'm not super strict about it. Like sometimes I really want to watch that show.
Yeah. And that's good. You give a little flexibility to your kids. So you're not like a super strict bedtime.
Oh, for them?
Or are you?
No, for them.
For them. Yeah.
On paper.
Yeah.
There is an official bedtime.
Yeah.
In reality, it doesn't always happen because they've got sports, they've got after school responsibilities. When they were smaller, it was much easier to say, okay, 7:30, everyone goes upstairs. Mm-hmm. But now my 13-year-old has, soccer practice at 7:30.
Right.
And not to mention that in middle school, you might see that the circadian rhythms of your kids change. Mm-hmm. And now your kid who would go to sleep at 7:30 is now tossing and turning until 10 or 11 o'clock. So, give credence to that too.
Yeah. Give a little flexibility too.
Yeah. As they get older, when they're little, you're like 7:30, you're in bed, and that is for your health and my sanity.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Arathi, thank you so much for being here with me today. And if you guys enjoyed the episode of The Cinnamon Effect, please like it, share it, review it. And that really helps us out a lot. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.